Hey everyone, Wandering Bard here. Quick note before the video starts. For those of you who are wondering why this isn't the Lumina analysis, the truth is that I'm not finished yet with this script. I have all the footage that I need and a very strong idea of what I want to talk about, but taking all of those thoughts and organizing them in a cohesive manner is proving more difficult than I thought. In the meantime, this is the second most voted for video on my poll from before, and also a video that is long overdue, so I really hope that you enjoy it. Lumina analysis will be coming as soon as I have a script though, so please subscribe if you want to see it. Enjoy the video.
Rem! Hit! Damn it!
Oh, this sucks.
We tend to associate the desire for power with villainy, especially when it comes to desiring a throne or to impose one's own will on the world. Even good people who desire or come into power or fame can often be corrupted by it. There are exceptions, of course. A notable Final Fantasy exception that I'd love to analyze at some point would be Ash from Final Fantasy XII, but today I'm going to look at a tragic hero, one whose desire for power ultimately does corrupt him, Machina Kunagiri from Final Fantasy Type-0. For those of you who haven't played Type-0, it is a spin-off title from the Fabula Nova Crystalla subseries, so basically it shares a mythos with the Final Fantasy XIII trilogy. It takes place in Orient, a world ruled by crystals and which has a legend about a savior called Agito, who will come in the end times to open the way to a new, boundless world. Cadets at the Academy in the Dominion of Rubrum hone both body and mind in hope of becoming Agito, and the game follows the class of these cadets, Class 0, and how they navigate being thrown into a war which ultimately brings about the end times. So in this world, there are many who desire power in order to become Agito, yet Machina is the only one whose desire for power ends up corrupting him, and his arc to getting there honestly reminds me quite a bit of Anakin Skywalker from the Star Wars prequels. Like, seriously, he's a powerful swordsman and magic user who gets thrown into a war, he loses someone super important to him early on, he's manipulated by the government into distrusting his peers, who are jerks at times to be fair, he wants so badly to become powerful to protect the people he has left, and he's so terrified of losing them that he's willing to take drastic measures, so he enslaves himself to an enemy power, loses himself, and ends up killing the person he was trying so hard to protect in the first place. Now obviously these are just plot points, but even the nuances in what drives them to corruption are quite similar, and I want to use this video to discuss that in detail and also consider whether there's anything Machina could have been done differently to avoid his fate. So let's dive in.
You two actually knew each other before coming here?
Rem and I? We're from the same village.
So Machina, even at the start of his arc, has already suffered and lost quite a bit. He grew up in the same village as Rem, another cadet who joins Class 0 with him at the start of the game, but as children their village burned down, leaving those two and his brother Izana as the only known survivors. Then, during the very first battle of the war, which takes up the game's prologue, Izana dies in the field, and ironically was only in the field at the behest of Ace, a member of Class 0, not that Machina knows anything about that at first. So Machina's whole backstory is full of tragedy, and yet he starts the game in a surprisingly good, healthy place. Unlike teenage Anakin who's moody and impulsive, Machina is hardworking, strong, polite to his new classmates, and also has a very good relationship with Rem, which has a solid foundation as both classmates and as survivors of tragedy. A big part of this may be the crystals doing. We learn early in the story that the crystals that rule Orient remove people's memories of the dead. Or maybe that's not the best way to put it. There's a random dialogue bit where 9, the most meathead member of Class 0, actually gets thoughtful about the whole thing and realizes that it's more like the crystals erase people's memories with the dead. You still know they existed and may even recall that you had a random interaction with them once, but you can't remember what happened or what they were like, and so you're not able to grieve them properly. So Machina, despite remembering the people he lost existed, doesn't really mourn them because, well, he doesn't know them. Which is kinda creepy to think about. That said, the events of his past leave their mark on him in other ways, because he does remember that he had a brother, and after he joins Class 0 we find him looking through military records, trying to figure out how and why Izana died. And he does remember the feeling of hopelessness he had watching his village burn down, which became a major part of his desire to become Agito, so he would never be helpless to protect the people he loves again. Or rather, the person he loves. The only one he has left is Rem, and he's terrified of losing her and his memories of her. And all of these things feed into his eventual downfall.
What do two division heads want with me?
You certainly have quite the attitude. or someone who has no accomplishments.
I should mention that the members of Class 0, besides Machina and Rem, are unique. Each of them was specially prepared by Aracia Alracia, Rubrum's head of sorcery, using magic technology that allowed them to use magic without relying on the crystal. They were also all taken at a young age and specially trained, not only in combat, but to be fearlessly, ruthlessly efficient. They don't even fear death since Aracia is able to revive them whenever they die. This training has made Class 0 invaluable soldiers in the war, especially since the enemy has a device that can shut down the crystal's power, rendering any other soldiers incapable of using magic. But the secrecy surrounding Class 0 and how they were prepared has led other members of Rubrum's council to not trust Aracia. This is why they add Machina and Rem to the class, hoping to use them as spies to discover what Aracia is really up to. And with Machina, they have the perfect candidate by playing on his desire to understand his brother's death. They reveal that Izana died on a mission at Ace's behest, spinning the story as though Ace and the rest of his class sacrificed Izana for the good of the mission. The truth is that Ace and Izana were friends, and Ace asked for Izana to work with them so he could have someone he knew watching his back. But the Dominion brass twists the events to drive a wedge between Machina and his classmates. They manipulate Machina into staying in Class 0 and doing the brunt of the spy work by keeping Rem in the class. She is the one person Machina would go to any lengths to protect, and he refuses to leave her side even for a moment, especially given recent events.
Come on. Please. Just tell me the truth.
What?
Your illness. How sick are you?
Early in the story, Rem comes down with a terminal illness that has no cure, even with all the magic of the crystal, and she chooses not to tell anybody about it. I mean, she's unable to hide that she's sick, and she's a terrible liar, so people figure it out, but she doesn't let them into what's going on. And her intentions are good. She's accepted that she's going to die, and nothing can change that. So she doesn't want people to worry about her, she doesn't want them fussing over her, she just wants to use the time she has left to fight for her friends. But because Machina can tell that she's sick, her not letting him in and explaining what's going on only feeds into his worst fears. He is terrified not only of losing her, but of losing his memories of her. And he wants more than anything to become powerful enough to save her. Also, as an aside, according to the novelization of the events leading up to the game, Aracia herself deliberately gave Rem a frail body to create a situation that would add more distance between Machina and her special Class 0. So between Miltes destroying his village, the Dominion brass separating Machina from his would-be friends, and Aracia slowly killing Rem, the entire universe is basically trying to dunk on any happiness Machina would have. Everything kind of explodes after a mission where the entire class almost dies trying to escape from Miltes. It's right before this mission that Machina learns the truth about how Izana died, and during this mission Rem's symptoms worsen during their escape. Machina keeps trying to stop and let her rest, but the rest of the class insists they keep going. Understandably, in my opinion, they have enemy soldiers at their heels, and they're trying to get somewhere safe so they can all rest properly. But all Machina can see is that they're willing to sacrifice Rem if it means completing their mission, just like how they supposedly sacrificed his brother. So once they get to safety, all his built-up resentment, fear, and insecurity finally just bursts forth, and he lashes out at his classmates, who dismiss his feelings as frivolous in light of their continued plight. Still angry, Machina leaves to patrol the surrounding area and happens upon Kunmi, a white tiger Lassie he fought previously, who offers to grant him her focus and make him a Lassie.
I hate being weak. I hate being a person who needs protection. I'll lose her, like I lost my brother if I don't act. I'll lose Rem, and my memories of her. If I become a Lassie, that will all change, right?
So for those of you who don't know, the White Tiger Crystal is the crystal that rules Rubrum's enemy, the Militesi Empire. So Machina becoming its Lassie is him betraying the dominion of Rubrum, his classmates, and Rem along with them. The question is, why? Like, if you wanted to be a Lassie, why not become a Vermilion Bird Lassie? Did he hate Class 0 so much he was willing to betray them for power? Sadly, the answer is a lot dumber. He just didn't see a difference in what crystal to become a Lassie for. If you play through the game a second time, you can unlock additional entries in the Rubicus, which is basically the game's data log. One of these entries is for Incognitus, which is the alias Machina uses when he's acting as the White Tiger Lassie. This entry describes Machina's state of mind as he accepted Kunmi's offer. stating that he took the OC's power because he was confident he could control it rather than the other way around. Which is completely stupid, and he would have realized as much if he had met any OC besides Kunmi. Becoming OC in this game is not the same as becoming one in the Final Fantasy XIII games. In Final Fantasy XIII, OC is given power and a focus, but has the option to not complete it, or could fail to complete it, in which case they become a Seath. In Type-0, however, becoming OC means serving the will of a crystal for hundreds of years, with its voice constantly whispering in your mind. OC who have served for so long become detached, emotionless, robbed of their humanity. Lady Setna describes herself and Lord Shouyu as puppets dancing for their master. Now, to his credit, maybe Machina thought this would be a gradual process, that in the beginning he would still have enough of his own will to use the power as he wanted to help Rem before the crystal's will took over. If so, however, he was very much mistaken. The moment he became OC, the will of the crystal began speaking like a voice in his mind, a voice he couldn't control or deny. First it told him he could no longer act against the Militesi Empire, and then it told him to assist the Empire during battles. Machina had all the power he wanted, powerful enough to block Alexander's attack simply by enhancing existing technology, but it came at the cost of his free will. There's a dialogue bit not long after he becomes OC, when the Dominion brass question him about Dr. Erasia. After their conversation is over, he says to himself,
I am an Agito cadet. I am Izana's brother, a member of Class 0. Rem's childhood friend.
He is trying to remind himself of who he is, trying to hold on to his identity, and ultimately failing. And whether it's because of the crystal's will or his own turmoil trying to resist it, over time he turns from a good-hearted young man to a mean, nasty person towards basically anyone who's not Rem. And he's so hung up on, it's okay Rem, I can save you now, that he doesn't realize he's already losing her. Because the person he's becoming isn't somebody she can recognize or follow, and he's too far gone to see it. Machina had good intentions from the start, and his desire for power came from a noble place, but when mixed with fear and resentment, that longing for power led him down a dark road, and ultimately led to the worst possible consequence after Rem herself became a Dominion lessee during the endgame. But before I talk about that, and about how Machina actually comes out of all of this okay, I want to think about if there's anything he could have done differently. Obviously, between Erasia setting up Rem's illness, the Dominion brass not trusting her, and Ace's accidental role in Izana's death, a lot was set up to push Machina in the direction that he ended up going. But could there have been a better way for him to manage his fear? Fear itself is an interesting topic for Final Fantasy Type-0. The 10 original members of Class 0 are basically conditioned to not let emotions affect them on the battlefield. Erasia and her master Pulse apparently believe that fear of loss or of death is a hindrance to her chosen pupils becoming stronger, and you can start to see why by looking at Machina. Eventually, however, Class 0 reaches a point where they couldn't remain fearless. When the end times begin and the Versus are unleashed, the whole world descends into chaos. And Erasia is absent for almost all of this, so Class 0 doesn't have the safety net from her that they normally would. And because they've all been trained not to experience fear, they didn't know how to handle it at first when they did finally experience it. Even Queen, the most level-headed and mature member of the group, panicked at first when the Versus invaded. But because they had each other to lean on, they were able to face the fear of death and push forward, which is what courage is really about. Meanwhile, because of all of the aforementioned manipulation Machina experienced, he had nobody to turn to except Rem, which was by design. And he always seems to stop short of really opening up to her about what's going on and what he's thinking and feeling. There is one moment later in the story when they do talk more openly about what's been bothering Machina, but he stops short of really opening up to her. Likely because if he had done so, he would have told her he'd become OSC, which the crystal would never allow him to talk about. It really does feel like the perfect storm of there's nothing he could have done differently, except maybe he could have chosen to, not become OSC. Or become a Vermilion Bird lessee, which would have given him power without conflicting his loyalties. But I think at the time, Machina was just really not in a place where he could think clearly about any of that whole situation.
Always remember me.
So the question here becomes, why does Machina end up okay, even after killing Rem in the endgame? I think part of it is that Rem doesn't actually die. After Machina stabs her, he comes to himself as he watches her bleed out, and then they both turn to crystal together. When Class 0 gets through all of their trials and reaches the judge's seat of power, they find Machina and Rem's crystals, with Machina holding Rem as she almost died. And that's how it could have stayed. They could have remained forever as an epitaph to loss and to grief. But instead of that, Machina and Rem saw an opportunity from the crystal to do something good, and they gave Class 0 the power they need to take the judge down. So they save the world, and the reason this works is that Machina continues to do this even after he's out of the crystal. After Class 0 dies, Erasha chooses to free them both from stasis, and she also removes the crystals from the world altogether. And with the fear gone and the White Tiger's voice no longer in his head, Machina was able to go back to the person he was before the war. In fact, the credits revealed that he saved the world, that he convinced people to keep looking for hope and helped rebuild Orience after the chaos of the war and the Rosas. Machina could have let the loss and the fear break him. Instead, he kept looking for opportunities to do the right thing. And that's why Machina gets to be called a hero. Honestly, that's what made them all heroes. Machina, Rem, and the members of Class 0 who died. They became heroes by finding their own path and by choosing to search for hope and choosing to keep doing the most good that they could no matter the odds. That's the essence of courage and heroism in a nutshell. And that's my analysis of Machina. I don't know that I'm going to get to do more character videos for Class 0, so I really hope you enjoyed this one. There will be one major theme analysis coming later this year for this game, so please subscribe if you want to see that, and hit the like button if you enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching, I hope to see you next time. Until then, have a good one.